hard not to think about what I watched and not have this reaction. Those were images that frankly kept me up at night, that I saw over and over and over.
When you were asked about it in June of 2016,
I recognize the pain. I can only imagine if my wife, my daughter, did not come home one night.
This is Judge Amber Wolf of the Kentucky 30th District Court, 2nd Division. Judge Wolf's sympathetic nature has become well known in the cold and rational legal world, and today she's going to show the lengths she will go to in order to treat her defendants with compassion. Before her is James Roeder, a 24-year-old Kentucky man who is facing burglary charges after he and his wife Ashley were caught breaking into a warehouse and stealing 6 flat-screen TVs. Ashley recently gave birth to the couple's baby boy while Roeder was in custody, and because the pair are co-defendants, there is a no-contact order in effect between them, meaning the defendant has not yet met his newborn son. Judge Wolf is just wrapping up Roeder's hearing and is preparing to start Ashley's hearing when she notices the young mom holding up the baby in the gallery for her husband to see as he exits the courtroom. The realization that the man hasn't yet met his baby son triggers something in the judge's sense of humanity, and she decides to take action.
You sure you're comfortable with this? Is this what you want to do? All right, just stay right there for just a second.
Judge Wolf calls Ashley Roeder to the front of the court and speaks to her before calling James Roeder back into the courtroom. She issues him with some strict instructions before clarifying the situation with him.
I don't want you to say anything to me about your case at all. Don't say anything. Your lawyer's not present right now. But I understand that there is a chance that you're going to go back to Todd County and that your baby is a month old and you haven't met that baby yet.
The judge summons Ashley Roeder to the podium with her baby boy, and Judge Wolf introduces them.
I know you have a no contact order between you and Miss Roeder that I issued, and I'm not changing that. I'm making a temporary exception right in front of me on the record so that you can meet this baby. This is your son.
Watch the heartwarming moment as Ashley hands the tiny infant over to her husband, who takes the baby and cradles him lovingly.
Be careful. You see his little shirt?
yeah. Up here.
Ashley Roeder is overcome with the tenderness of the moment and can be seen wiping tears from her eyes, and it seems she's not the only one. As the camera pans back to Judge Wolf, she can also be seen wiping a stray tear from her cheek. With that, the judge wraps up the moment, telling the defendant that she will see him at his next court date. Judge Wolf's tears were a reaction to a joyful, emotional moment in her courtroom.
And Miss Roeder, you can stay up here because I'm going to call your case next. Thank you for letting me be a part of that. If y'all aren't teared up, then you're just heartless.
But unfortunately for Judge Jennifer Dorow, it's utter heartbreak that puts her on the verge of tears.
It's hard not to think about what I watched and not have this reaction.
Judge Dorow is conducting a sentencing hearing for Darrell Brooks at Waukesha County Circuit Court in Wisconsin. The sentencing follows a contentious trial in which 40-year-old Brooks represented himself against more than 76 charges, including 6 counts of intentional homicide, after he drove his SUV through a Christmas parade in Waukesha. The incident resulted in the deaths of 6 people, the youngest of whom was just 8 years old, and the injury of dozens more. Despite his claims that he sounded the vehicle's horn to warn the spectators, he was found guilty on all counts. Brooks is in court today to hear his fate in relation to the charges, and Judge Dorow isn't about to hold back as she delivers her emotive speech. The judge starts out by pointing out all of the reasons that she didn't accept Brooks's defense that he didn't intend to plow through the crowds.
Many police vehicles at these intersections with their lights flashing. There's no doubt in my mind that Mr. Brooks would understand a parade was going on. It was not yet dark, it was dusk. I think that aids to the visibility that Mr. Brooks would have seen all of these people. This is not under cover of night.
As the judge continues her impassioned address to the court, Brooks sits, fanning himself nonchalantly with a file folder, until Judge Dorow can no longer hold it together. What happens next is highly unusual in a courtroom setting. Judge Dorow can be seen becoming increasingly emotional, but as she begins to talk about the 11 members of the Waukesha South Band who were mowed down by Brooks, she is overcome. Through her tears, she describes how the evidence that she has seen keeps her awake at night.
It's hard not to think about what I watched and not have this reaction. Those were images that frankly kept me up at night, that I saw over and over and over.
Judge Dorow continues, applauding the courage of the band director who testified during the trial, and the sheer emotion can be heard breaking her voice.
She is a hero to me, to get up on this stand, to identify each one of her students.
She eventually reaches for the Kleenex, wiping away her tears as she goes on. She takes a few moments to compose herself before continuing to speak, while Brooks remains emotionless in his seat. The hearing carries on, and Judge Dorow seems to have collected herself. But as she begins to speak once more about testimony given by victims of the attack, she breaks down again.
And then, of course, another video that frankly is very difficult to watch and hard to unsee. I now understand why one of the girls called her aunt and said, "My entire team is dead," because that's what it looked like. It was horrific. And to think of those two brave young ladies who got up during this trial to testify about what they saw, what they did, your dancers are proud of you. And because of you, justice has been served.
Incredibly, as she delivers her harrowing words, Brooks shows no visible signs of caring, and he raises his hands in the air in a show of disregard. As she nears the end of her address, Brooks begins to interrupt the judge.
And that you had contact with her on the 20th. There was some physical.
Contact with her on the 20th.
Mr. Brooks, this is my time. You need to not interrupt. Mr. Brooks,
The state
you need to stop.
said specifically, wrote you, Your Honor.
Mr.
And now
Brooks,
you want to sit up here.
Do not
and now
interrupt me
you-
or you will be removed to the other
and now
courtroom.
you want to sit up here
Stop.
and try to.
The killer continues to argue, and Judge Dorow threatens to have him removed if he doesn't stop.
You talking about someone with 5 kids that don't have custody.
You need to stop
None of
right
them.
now or you will be removed.
Remove me then.
Brooks is eventually escorted out of the courtroom for his outburst, flanked by sheriff's deputies.
All right? He will be removed. He cannot simply stay
I don't
quiet.
consent.
He ultimately receives life in prison without the possibility of parole. It would be difficult for anyone to remain unaffected by such a heinous crime, not least Judge Dorow, who has 3 kids of her own. But as we see in the next case, it's not just female judges who are brought to the brink by the tragedy of the crimes they encounter. Judge Robert Chasteen is in court today to sentence Bo Dukes for helping to conceal the death of Tara Grinstead. Grinstead, who was an Irwin County teacher and former beauty queen, vanished in 2005. Her body was never found, but it's believed that Tara was murdered, and although the man suspected of killing her was acquitted of the charges, his accomplice Bo Dukes confessed to police in 2017 that he helped to dispose of and conceal Tara's body. Justice has been a long time coming for Tara's family, and Judge Chasteen begins the hearing by acknowledging this.
Nothing that I do here is going to alleviate the pain that the family has endured all these years.
It's clear by his body language that the judge is struggling to maintain his composure, and he fidgets with items on his desk as he tries to find any words that might bring comfort to the Grinstead family.
It's just an unfortunate situation that the family's had to grieve that long to determine what happened to Tara Grinstead. I just can't quite, wrap my head around.
The emotional strain is obvious in his voice as he continues his address.
And that would have been the time to come forward and say, let me tell you what I did. We all have. But that would have been the time to come forward.
Unable to contain himself any longer, Judge Chasteen breaks down in distress at the prolonged suffering that Tara Grinstead's family endured over the 12 years they spent looking for answers.
When you were asked about it in June of 2016, I don't take any pleasure out of sentencing anyone, but that's a part of my job.
Judge Chasteen eventually masters his emotions, and he hands down the maximum combined sentence of 25 years to Bo Dukes, ensuring at least some measure of justice for the Grinstead family.
The court's going to sentence you on count 1 to a period of 5 years to serve in the state penitentiary. On count 2, the court's going to sentence you to 5 years to serve in the state penitentiary consecutive to count 1. And on count 3, the court's going to sentence you to 5 years consecutive to count 2 to serve in the state penitentiary. And on count 4, the court's going to sentence you to 10 years consecutive to the sentence in count 3 to serve in the state penitentiary.
Judge Chasteen's distress was no doubt caused by the senselessness of Tara's murder, along with the unnecessary prolonged suffering of her family. And in the case of Judge William Atkinson, he has seen too much of this same anguish time after time. Judge Atkinson is in court today to sentence David Meyer on 2 counts of homicide by use of a vehicle with a prohibited alcohol concentration. Meyer's alcohol level was almost 3 times over the legal limit for driving when he hit Rebecca and Raelia Pennenberg, who were out walking in Lawrence, Wisconsin. The mother and daughter were killed instantly on impact. The Pennenbergs' family are present in court to learn the fate of Meyer, and a number of statements written by their loved ones are read out, requesting a lengthy jail sentence for the drunk driver. Judge Atkinson's feelings are clear as he begins to address the court with some very strong words.
I've seen too many people suffer from drunk driving. I didn't know the family, had no connection, but I've seen too many of these cases.
Despite not knowing the victims or their family, it's clear that the judge has been deeply affected by the case. His voice cracks, and he becomes increasingly upset as he continues to speak. In an incredible show of humanity, Judge Atkinson breaks down in tears, openly weeping as he imagines the prospect of his own wife and daughter going out one night and not coming home because of the actions of a drunk driver.
I recognize the pain. I can only imagine if my wife, my daughter, did not come home one night.
Onlookers in the court are stunned by his speech, and a few are overcome by his words as he concludes his address. Myers himself speaks, expressing his regret and apologizing for his actions.
There's nothing I can say that's gonna ease their pain. There's no words I can say to give them any peace. I've been and will continue to give people the understanding of what it means to drink and drive. I continue to tell everyone I meet that when you drink, the first thing you lose is your judgment.
However, Judge Atkinson isn't buying his show of remorse, and he sentences Meyer to a total of 10 years in prison for killing Rebecca and Raelia Pennenberg. He also orders Meyer to serve 10 years of extended supervision after his release, during which the defendant will not be allowed to buy or drink alcohol.